Welcome back to the farm, everyone. The days of reckoning are here, and we're getting warmed up with a nice 1.25 inches of rain in the last 30 minutes. They're calling for over 3 inches by tomorrow morning. Not only would that be poor for our soil overall, it also probably would not be favorable rain for all the soybeans we have planted. And don't even get me started about that first round of soybeans, because they've got a tough week ahead of them. Currently, we've backed down from a complete downpour to just a pretty steady rain. My weather station says 1.5 inches so far. I'm questioning the accuracy of that because of how hard it rained. It got a little windy, and the visual signs of water just running here. The backyard has very poor drainage. You can see the channels making its way out. And then out farther across, and I don't know if the camera picks it up, there's a pretty healthy river of water running from our main farm down to that new drainage ditch that we might go check out. Depending on our luck and how the storm develops overnight, this could go from just a measly rain to a disaster, or it could just be a nice rehydrating session for our soil ahead of corn planting. It could obviously be much worse. We're on like the north end of the wet area of this system over the next few days. In southern Illinois, kind of along the Ohio River, the Wabash River area, maybe south into Kentucky, I saw a forecast a few days ago that was calling from 12 to 15 inches. 3 inches is child's play compared to a foot plus of rain. That would not be good. You wouldn't just have a few washes here and there. You'd have terrace tops completely blown out. It would be quite literally a disaster. And I hope that no one gets that much rain. If you do, that you stay safe and you're able to repair everything without major issue. I know it often comes off as me complaining about the weather. Unless we need a timely rain here or there, it's not a complaint about the weather. I'm just commentating about what's going on this growing season on our farm. What happens with the weather is completely out of our control, though I can talk about it as it occurs. I don't know, that looks like more than 1.5 inches of rain to me. Maybe it's just the speed it came at. That field's planted. Here's the ditch south of the farm we had recut this winter. I think we're gonna have some erosion out there. Oh yes, nice brown water coming out of the diversion. That is going to need a rock check. It's doing its job though. It's keeping the water from growing through the field. It's cutting it out into the ditch and going south with it. Water always finds a way. Man, there's a lot of it. That's got to be more than 1.5 inches. Look at the speed on that little current. The brown color means there's soil with it, which is obviously not ideal. Here is the second diversion. It catches more water. That thing is maybe a couple inches of water away from just completely blowing out. Like the one uphill, it's doing its job for now, putting the water into the ditch, but I don't really like what I'm seeing. I don't think that's gonna last long. What do you even do out on this farm? There's just so much water that's trying to escape. The NRCS office came out last winter and did a survey, and there's about 800 acres, I believe, that drains all down to one point on our farm, and this is the path it takes. Not enough terraces and not enough tile, so we constantly lose topsoil until we do something about it. And here is the exit point. I believe a 36-inch culvert under the road into the gravel pit. That's a lot of water trying to leave. It's just right at the precipice of being too much. There is 2 inches of air at the top of that pipe. The not so funny part is Dad and I just reseeded this ditch here on the west side that I've been showing you yesterday. I think most of that seed's probably gone. This is another extremely wet area east of our main farm, about 6 miles, and there is a lot of H2O running across here. Not enough to be a concern for the car, for the record. You should never cross moving water unless you know the depth of it. If you squint hard enough where there's a little disturbance there, That is a 24-inch tile inlet, surface direct to the main, and it is underwater, but I bet it's pumping out the water. Right here is the other 24-inch main. They're two separate mains installed 30 or 40 years apart. There's a lot of water that comes to this farm, and you can see which way it comes from. Those tiles outlet right here next to each other. You can't even see them, they're below water. That's how much rain we've had in a short amount of time, and someone's debris is leaving through the drainage ditch. That wasn't us. Not that we are immune to such issues, but that one just wasn't us this time. I'll give you guys an update in a little bit if the rain ever stops. Sun's about to set on today. Is it ever going to stop raining? No, it's not. Maybe I shouldn't keep chewing up your dog beds. We've made it to the next day. Right there is the total rainfall from the last 24 hours, showing 2.86 inches of rain. 3 inches of rain in a 10-hour period is definitely a lot of water, except it's also not even close to the most amount we've seen in a short amount of time. We've had 5-inch rains that come in just a handful of hours, so we'll count our blessings. It almost looks like it rained more than 3 inches. I think that so much of the water just came in a short burst there when it first started yesterday evening that we're just going to have a lot of symptoms of high-speed moving water. Right here's that first diversion on the north side that we had recut. You can see some of my soybeans are exposed now, probably because the topsoil's been washed off of them. Get tired of looking at some of this stuff. The diversion did its job, I think. It kept the water from going downhill and redirected it into the road ditch. Now I just need to get some seed and grass established in here to keep the side banks nice and solid. This exemplifies why we had to recut this ditch to get it back to grade. Over the last few decades, through probably erosion and just seemingly more frequent large rainfalls, water in this area was collecting, not going into the ditch, and was blowing through and picking up speed downhill, cutting a really deep channel. So that's why we had to dig this back up. It probably had just silted in, and then the water always finds the easiest path. I'm glad we got that done. It looks like it held. If we'd gotten a 4 or 5 inch rain, I guess that water probably would have just cut back through and we would have been back to square one. You cannot fix complex drainage issues with one remedy like recutting a ditch that I've shown you 1,000 times. Even when you get downstream a little bit, the water's still collecting here and you can see it washing out, and we've had a lot of trouble in this area. We need a terrace right here on the property line that actually stops the water. The more water you can collect upstream, the less water is building momentum and accruing larger volumes headed down grade that causes further erosion. I'm guessing we need a terrace here. There's probably 3 or 4 terraces needed behind the main farm, if not more, because I mean, what are we doing? We're just losing soil every time it rains like this, and it happens at least once a year. It all just goes where it wants. It's pretty easy to summarize. All of this land right here, including the farm side, all of those bin roofs, the shed roofs, the house roofs, they almost entirely drain all the way down here across this field, through this ditch, down to that corner. The camera never does justice to the dimensions of the situation. There's quite a bit of fall from up there to down there. I'm guessing, just by eyeballing it, at least 30 foot of fall. I don't know entirely. That's what it looks like, but I don't have a surveying crew or the data to myself. A lot of speed can be gathered, and the worst thing you can have is a lot of water with a lot of speed. That second diversion also held. There's a few earthworms out there that did not survive the onslaught. A lot of soil moved around. Holy smokes! Look at all these earthworms! I've never seen such a thing. That is insane. Yeah, it's a little wet out this morning. Jeez. No, that's not a small man-made lake. That's just one of our fields. Once upon a time, about 10 years ago, we had a 5-inch rain in December, all within a handful of hours, just an absolute obliterating flash flood. And there was probably 100 acres of this underwater. You could have taken a boat out here. It's pretty deep in some spots. Most of this, though, is just surface water, probably 6 to 10 inches. The 2 tile drains I talked about, they're running, you just can't tell. I doubt they're running full capacity because the drainage ditch is not cleared yet. I'm guessing by later today, the outlets will be above water and these things will really start sucking it down. I think I just witnessed some kind of duck violence. They're fighting each other, or maybe that was love. There's the 2 outlets right there. They're still right at the water line. They are pushing water out. It's just kind of hard to visualize with the water over them. It's been dry enough for the last 6 months that this drainage ditch will catch up probably sooner rather than later. A lot of water trying to get to where it's going. There's that big ponding spot from the north side on the interstate overpass. I think you could draw the fair conclusion that the interstate may have something to do with some of the water issues. If you look past the signs of erosion, a little bit of water standing across some fields, and a gigantic amount of water in some of our worst low-lying ponding areas, we came out of this relatively unscathed for what was a 4 to 5 inch rain in totality, depending on where you're at. Some farms can handle that much rain without a lot of issue, and others are still underwater today. And I'm not talking about these 2 small little ponds here. That's probably just compaction. I'll show you a few fields that are still a little bit of a lake. Keep in mind, at the beginning of this episode, I referred to these few days as the days of reckoning. The rain, the flood, if you will, was just a small part of the equation. If anything, it was insignificant because we don't have that much stuff planted. Yes, a lot of water at one time is never good. That's just part of farming. Another part of farming, which comes with the territory of planting beans in March and getting good growing weather, is April frosts when you have emerged soybeans. That is going to be the real test. I was not expecting these beans to be out of the ground the first week of April. If I'd known this was going to happen, I probably would have put them maybe another ½ inch in the ground. Soybeans can only be planted so deep in the ground until they just quite literally can't make it out. It looks like 2 inches with the seed bed and the weather we had wasn't even a hurdle at all for these because they're up in record pace for this time of year. You can row them here along the end. There's a little bit more tillage, a little bit more soil exposed. That helps them. They also have survived a night last night or this morning where my weather station at about 6 feet in the air showed the temperatures at 31 degrees. I'm not even going to thoroughly look at these because I know they survived that. The ultimate test comes tonight. My phone is currently showing the low as 27 degrees Fahrenheit. Freezing temperatures are 32 and below. Soybeans, from research, anecdotes, data, whatever you want to use, are claimed to be able to survive a few hours at 28 degrees Fahrenheit without being terminated. With their proximity to the soil, I doubt last night even phased these soybeans. It wasn't 31 for any more than 30 minutes based on my weather station data. Tomorrow night is going to be the interesting question, because if we get down to 28, maybe 27 degrees, there is a risk of these soybeans not surviving. That's really the gamble of planting them in March. Inclement weather, large rains, yes, those aren't favorable. However, when the soil is cool and the soybeans aren't growing at a very rapid rate, saturated soils, as long as they don't continue on for weeks at a time, really are not a major threat to soybeans, especially if you run full spectrum seed treatments to help with diseases that travel and prosper in these wet soil conditions. It's the frosts that can really hamper your progress. A forecasted low of 27 degrees will be the ultimate test of these soybeans. Keep in mind, we only planted one field this early. That last large chunk of beans we planted should not be close to emerged yet. They probably won't come out for another 7 to 10 days, if not longer. It's just the first ones we're worried about. If they survive this and they get to start growing next week while everything else is not emerged or still in the bag in the shed, these beans are primed to have a great start to the growing season. They're light years ahead of things that aren't planted right now. Of course, it could frost again later in the month or in May. Anything's possible. That is the genius of this whole strategy. The earlier you plant them the first time, the quicker you can get to them the second time. Yes, all those other fields that planted 2 weeks ago, this field would have definitely planted at the same time. So if these come up and die, maybe we reconsider either planting depth or early March as a good time to plant. I'm extremely confident in later March beans. It's these early ones that I'm not sure about, and we're gonna find out here by tomorrow or the next day after the damage has revealed itself. This field and area in general is our second wettest place. This is the main drain right here. It's a classic case of too many corn stalks plugging the tile inlet, and the main that drains this whole area is just not big enough. It's not made for 4 to 5 inches of rain. A rake would probably be more useful than a hoe. This system was put in multiple decades, if not a century before I was born. I think it's a 18 to 22 inch clay. I don't know the size. There's a lot of oddly shaped clay tiles. It's not like today's plastic systems where it's 18, 24, 30. There's a lot of weird increments in there. It's been a few days, so the water level's gone down quite a bit. We've got a 70-acre field. Property line's just on the east side here of that anhydrous pipeline valve. I'd guess after the rain, 30 acres of this was probably underwater, and we're not alone. The neighbor here, he's got the same water issues. It's the same low spot. Our neighbors to the north, they've got a field that has its own kind of drainage pattern, but it's wet. This field of ours, it's an 80 across the road. It's pretty wet too, not as bad as the corn stalks. And on the other side of this hill, the neighbor over that way has got a bunch of these ponds. It's one of those natural low-lying areas, and there's just not been enough tile invested in it. There's been a lot of tile put in these farms, a lot of money spent. It just takes a tremendous amount of financial burden to install a system large enough to handle the amount of water that naturally sheds into this area. These inlets are really satisfying to watch. This is a big enough tile that you really could just take it off and let all the stalks in. It's just not good practice. On smaller systems, once you get below 12 inch, you gotta be really careful letting a lot of debris in because it can plug the tile. It's not likely, but it is possible. I showed you the second biggest pond. Now I will again show you the first biggest one. This has come down quite a bit, yet there is still a lot of water out here. I'm guessing that under here, and you can't see it right now, one of the 24-inch inlets is plugged. What's fascinating about this one is the inlet is like in this area somewhere, and the swirling is over here, like it's sucking water from over there. Actually, there's some there now. It's pulling water down, just not running at full capacity, and it's too deep and there's too much risk to try to clean it right now because we can't see it. So we're just gonna have to let nature run its course here. It's a good thing about not having anything planted on some of these really wet farms, and part of the reason we don't is because if this happens early in the season, well, you're gonna be out here rear planting. Those seagulls are out there having a blast, just swimming, probably eating some worms. What a life. I'll give it an honest shot at cleaning. Let's see, the cross is right here. So the inlet, probably. Yeah, a little cattle fencing around the main guard to try and block some of the debris. Sometimes you wonder if you'd be better. Deep thaw, high performance snow and ice melter. There we go. Doesn't seem to have made any difference. This is what we really need to do to that other surface inlet. This is another older 24-inch main. It has a big concrete box around it, so the mouth always has a lot of water at the surface to pull in. It is full of corn and soybean chaff. It looks, though, based on the way the water's flowing in around here, that it's running at max capacity. The newer system that I believe is plugged is the south pipe. It looks like it's putting out less water. I'm convinced that it is definitely blocked up there up top. Also, having a bigger box on the feeding side probably helps this one. They should be running about the same pace. I don't think they are. Even the flap on it kind of tells you how much volume is coming out of it. The older one's chugging out the water, and the newer one's a little bit behind. It immediately opened up over there. Was there just one on it or two of them? Today is the day we find out the results. According to my weather station last night, it got down to 27 degrees. The visible frost on the ground is mostly gone because I helped Allie get the boys ready for school. So it's already 8 o'clock and the sun's shining. It's important to note that they probably won't visibly show major injury immediately. Once it warms up and they start growing again today, that's when you'll really be able to tell. I can't really tell. They don't look thrilled. They also don't look dead. It's probably way too early to be able to evaluate that. Those ones right there are literally in ice. There's ice on the ground. Wow. This one still has the ice crystals on it. I probably shouldn't speak too soon because I'll come back in a handful of hours and they'll be just completely brown. It's impossible to walk across here and evaluate it. We're just gonna have to give them a few hours because time will really tell whether or not they survive. It takes time for the tissue that's damaged to actually kind of deteriorate. They could be okay and they also could be done for. I guess we'll have to distract ourselves from the sorrow once again by checking drain tile inlets and seeing what's going on. It's amazing, really, these huge low-lying areas. It's like emptying a swimming pool. It seems like they hardly empty out until you get a couple million gallons out of them, and then you blink your eyes and they're down quite a bit. Not a whole lot of water left in here for the two 24-inch tiles to dump out. They also need to get all the surface water out before the subsurface laterals will even start running. I'm not entirely sure if that's true, but that's kind of what I'm guessing. The water on the surface probably takes precedence over the water underground just from head pressure and hydraulics. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. The irony of this field is that you've got a literal swamp, and then the top of the hill right there is grayed off. That's amazing. It is Tuesday currently, and I'm betting on these fields being passable by Monday of next week unless we get more rain. This ground was really, really dry coming into this rain. Yes, it was an overwhelming amount of surface water, more than can infiltrate, so a lot of it ponded and ran off. Overall, this has got to be a net positive, especially for our corn crop, because this rain had to have replenished the subsoil moisture quite a bit. We're dry down below. It's just on top that's been holding us back. Amidst the chaos of the 4+ inches of rain this weekend, our adopted stray black cat we call Salem decided to have her 7 kittens. I know what you're thinking, Andy. Is this a ritualistic celebratory hole you're digging? No, it's not. 6 of her kittens were perfectly fine and healthy, and one of them unfortunately was born with an arm and a leg missing, and a tail actually. I'm assuming, based on my research, and I'm not a veterinarian, that the umbilical cord was wrapped around it while it was in the womb and it just never developed. Nature kind of took its course after it was born, and that cat just was unable to feed and stay warm. Sad, but that's the way life is. We were rooting for the little kitten. We'd even named it Nubsy. Wonder how many animals are buried out on this farm. Probably a lot. There you go, little kitten. We come from the earth and we shall return to the earth. Speaking of the devil, there's the teen mom herself.
Mama. Yeah. Help. Help.
Let me in there.
She's gonna feed her babies.
4 gray ones and 2 black ones. Minus the black one that was just buried. Moment of silence.
I don't think they can eat like that.
Can you say kitty? Kitty? Kitty?
What sound does a kitty make?
Hi, kitty. It's really not that hard to waste the day away when you've got tile issues and other fields you're trying to pinpoint, working on hauling some grain, sweeping out some bins, and I took like a 4-hour nap, so that's pretty much all the work day. Back here at this big ponded area, just to kind of show you how far down this 24-inch system is, it's almost like it never even rained out here. Look at that little pea stream crack right there. It's always something, isn't it? Nothing like the slight cleansing workout of a couple million gallons through this main. That's what it's put in for. Dad checked on this when I was away, and he's the one who initially uncovered this. He said it was completely full of corn leaves, mostly maybe some corn stalks. I think what we need to do is accept that some of the tract is going to go through and maybe cut off every other bar, and that would allow some more to feed in, because if it gets plugged underneath 7 or 8 foot of water, there's nothing we can do about it, and it's rendered essentially useless, which defeats the purpose of all the money we spent on it. All that remains is the little remnants of the tremendous amount of water that was once out here. And I'm sure at some point in the future, hopefully not right now this year, there will be another tremendous load of water out here. Anything's possible. These poor soybeans did not have a good day. I'm not sure that they're toast. They just don't look that good either. They've had all day in the sun to kind of evaluate what they're going to do, and I don't see any clear direction. I thought that they would be kind of brown by now. Maybe they'll weather this cold weather and the frost and survive. I don't really know. It is what it is. There's a reason we planted this one first, because by the time it's dry enough to plant again, this field will be dry enough and we can plant it in April. I'm back to check in with you 24 hours later after an uneventful work day. Nothing too exciting going on. Same thing as yesterday, working on some tile stuff, hauling grain, stuff we do when we're not planting this time of year. I'm losing a little bit of confidence in these beans. They look worse today than they did yesterday. Here's one spot I've been keeping an eye on. There's one that's definitely not going to make it. That one, I don't know. They're just not really coming around like I thought they would. I know that some areas probably aren't entirely out of the ground. Other areas probably didn't get as much frost. It's just a matter of, do you splice in beans in a few spots or sporadically? Do you come out here and plant the whole field at a half-rate population? Or do you just rip them all out and try again if they don't survive here in the next few days? After a 27-degree beating, you gotta take your medicine, and that's what these beans are doing right now. I'm rooting for them because I don't want to have to replant them. I just don't know what to expect. Here's another spot I have flagged out here, just keeping an eye on how these progress or regress. They don't look good. Yes, it's me again. I know you might not recognize me with the trim beard and the haircut. My wife said I was starting to look homely, and I don't think that was a compliment, so ran into the local hair cuttery and got trimmed up so I look presentable for my family, I guess is the goal with that. Mother Nature can't quite make up her mind. One day it's 55 degrees and sunny, the next day it's 30 degrees and back and forth. I'm checking in one last time in this video on these beans that got frosted. The days of reckoning have turned into a week. I think the frost would have been 3 or 4 days ago now, and I'm still pretty indeterminate about what the future of these beans are. I'm getting a lot of mixed signals. You've got some that are obviously green over there. There's one that's very, very brown. This one does not look that great, yet you pull the cotyledon back and there's green coming out, and I think there's more green on them every day. I still don't think we've had enough time to truly determine if these are going to survive. I don't have a strong opinion. I still think we're hanging on by a thread. They might come out of it or they may not. We just need more warm weather to stimulate growth, because growth is typically what showcases death the quickest. This row right here, I don't think is going to survive. Look, probably dead, most likely dead. One's dead here, one's up. It's not really squishy or anything. One's underground. It may survive unless the neck froze off and it's just not going to grow. Part of the slowness, other than the temperature, is the damage control the plant is probably doing internally. It may take a couple days just for it to try to rebuild any tissue that got frosted, and if it can reestablish that, possibly it survives. I was certain by the end of this lengthy video, based on the calendar date, that I would have an answer for you on this, and I don't really want to just keep filming this in perpetuity because I'm skipping the capturing of other action and content here on the farm. I'm still rooting for these beans. I don't really have a strong opinion. I've said that a million times, but I have no idea if these are going to make it or not. I'd love to know your opinion down in the comments if you think these beans can survive after a low temperature of 27 degrees Fahrenheit. Do we need to think about just ripping them up next time it's dry, which appears like it'll be somewhat soon on this farm? Abandon ship here and head to maybe a nicer rig and start over? We're still in that maximum yield potential window because it's only the 10th or 11th of April. So if we get back out here and plant them again, they're going to have a statistically strong chance of still being great beans. The rest of the beans, if they're not covered in corn stalks from all the water that washed across them, they're not out of the ground yet, so I don't see why they would have had any issue. Just need it to warm up because these 40-degree average temperatures aren't making anything too excited to get out of the ground or recover or do anything of sorts. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else to add. I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. Appreciate you all tuning in. I sure hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!